Welcome to our Book of Nehemiah Bible Quiz. The story of Nehemiah is one of determination, faith, and leadership. In this quiz, we'll test your knowledge of Nehemiah's unwavering faith, his challenges in the face of opposition, and the spiritual revival he sparked among the Israelites. From his heartfelt prayers to his strategic leadership, Nehemiah's story is a timeless example of trusting God and taking action. Before we continue, do well to subscribe if you have not. This will help us to reach other people with the gospel. Are you ready to explore the faith, courage, and resilience of Nehemiah? Let's get started. Question 1. What was Nehemiah's position in the Persian court? Cupbearer, governor, scribe. The answer is cupbearer. Nehemiah, chapter 1, verses 11. I was cupbearer to the king. Nehemiah's role as a cupbearer was significant, giving him access to the king. Question 2. Who gave Nehemiah permission to rebuild Jerusalem's walls? Cyrus, Artaxerxes, Darius. The answer is Artaxerxes. Nehemiah, chapter 2, verses 1 to 8. In the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was brought for him, I took the wine and gave it to the king. I had not been sad in his presence before. Because the gracious hand of my God was on me, the king granted my requests. King Artaxerxes granted Nehemiah's request to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. Question 3. What was the primary opposition faced by Nehemiah in rebuilding the wall? Foreign invaders, internal betrayal, mockery, and threats. The answer is mockery and threats. Nehemiah chapter 4, verses 1 to 3. When Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, he became angry and was greatly incensed. He ridiculed the Jews. Sanballat and Tobiah mocked and threatened Nehemiah and his workers. Question 4. What emotion did the king notice on Nehemiah's face? Joy, sadness, anger. The answer is sadness. Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 2. So the king asked me, "Why does your face look so sad when you are not ill? This can be nothing but sadness of heart." The king recognized Nehemiah's sadness as a reflection of his deep concern for Jerusalem. Question 5. Who was Nehemiah's primary ally in the religious reforms? Ezra, Zerubbabel, Haggai. The answer is Ezra. Nehemiah, chapter 8, verses 1 to 3. Ezra, the teacher of the law, stood on a high wooden platform. Ezra read the law to the people, aiding Nehemiah's efforts to renew Israel's faith. Question 6. What was the people's response when Ezra read the law? They wept, they complained, they left. The answer is, they wept. Nehemiah chapter 8, verse 9. For all the people had been weeping as they listened to the words of the law. The people were convicted of their sins and moved to repentance upon hearing God's law. Question 7. Who mocked Nehemiah, saying even a fox could break down the wall? Tobiah, Geshem, Sanballat. The answer is Tobiah. Nehemiah, chapter 4, verse 3. Tobiah the Ammonite, who was at his side, said, "What they are building, even a fox climbing up on it, would break down their wall of stones." Tobiah scorned the rebuilding efforts, but his words did not deter Nehemiah. Question 8. What strategy did Nehemiah use to defend the workers from enemies? He stationed guards. He stopped the work. He negotiated. The answer is, he stationed guards. Nehemiah chapter 4, verses 16 to 18. Half of my men did the work, while the other half were equipped with spears. Nehemiah assigned workers to carry tools and weapons, ensuring safety and progress. Question 9. How did Nehemiah address the issue of charging interest among the Jews? He rebuked them. He punished them. He ignored it. The answer is, he rebuked them. Nehemiah chapter 5, verse 7. I pondered them in my mind and then accused the nobles and officials. I told them, "You are charging your own people interest." So I called together a large meeting to deal with them. Nehemiah confronted the nobles and officials, urging them to stop exploiting their brethren. Question 10. What did Nehemiah do upon discovering Tobiah's presence in the temple? Threw out Tobiah's belongings, prayed for him, asked him to leave. The answer is, threw out Tobiah's belongings. Nehemiah chapter 13, verses 8 to 9. I was greatly displeased and threw all Tobiah's household goods out of the room. I gave orders to purify the rooms. Nehemiah's decisive action restored the sanctity of the temple, reflecting his zeal for God's house. Question 11. What was Nehemiah's prayer after hearing the state of Jerusalem? A prayer of lament, a prayer of anger, a prayer of celebration. The answer is a prayer of lament. Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 4. When I heard these things, I sat down and wept. For some days I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven. Nehemiah's heartfelt prayer showed his concern and reliance on God. Question 12. Who was the father of Nehemiah, Hakaliah, Mordecai, Joseph? The answer is Hakaliah. Nehemiah, chapter 1, verses 1. The words of Nehemiah, son of Hakaliah, in the month of Kislev in the 20th year, while I was in the citadel of Susa. The father of Nehemiah was Hakaliah. Question 13. My people and I did not take off our dash. Each had his weapon. Sandals, clothes, jewelry. The answer is clothes. Nehemiah, chapter 3, verse 23. Neither I, nor my brothers, nor my men, nor the guards with me took off our clothes. Each had his weapon, even when he went for water. This verse reflects the intense dedication and vigilance of Nehemiah and his team during the rebuilding of Jerusalem's walls amidst opposition. Question 14. What was Nehemiah's response to the nobles and officials exploiting others? He enforced restitution. He expelled them. He ignored them. The answer is, he enforced restitution. Nehemiah chapter 5, verse 11. Give back to them immediately their fields, vineyards, olive groves, and houses. Nehemiah demanded that the nobles return what they had unjustly taken from their brethren. Question 15. Who helped Nehemiah rebuild the wall despite opposition? The Levites, the people of Jerusalem, the priests. The answer is the people of Jerusalem. Nehemiah chapter 3, verses 1 to 32. The high priest Eliashib and his fellow priests went to work and rebuilt the sheep gate. The rebuilding was a communal effort involving all classes of people. Question 16. How did Nehemiah respond to the false accusations of Sanballat and Tobiah? He prayed to God. He fled the city. He compromised. The answer is, he prayed to God. Nehemiah chapter 6, verse 9. They were all trying to frighten us, thinking, their hands will get too weak for the work, and it will not be completed. But I prayed, now strengthen my hands. Nehemiah relied on God for strength and refused to be intimidated. Question 17. How did Nehemiah respond to a false prophecy intended to frighten him? He prayed and ignored it. He fled. He rebuked them. The answer is, he prayed and ignored it. Nehemiah chapter 6, verse 11. Should a man like me run away? Or should someone like me go into the temple to save his life? Nehemiah discerned the false prophecy and stood firm, trusting God. Question 18. What position did Nehemiah appoint Hanani to after the wall was completed? Cupbearer, commander of the citadel, governor. The answer is commander of the guard. Nehemiah chapter 7, verse 2. I put in charge of Jerusalem my brother Hanani, along with Hananiah the commander of the citadel, because he was a man of integrity and feared God more than than most people do. Nehemiah trusted Hanani due to his faithfulness and fear of God. Question 19. What was the purpose of the genealogical record in Nehemiah 7? To identify Levites, to determine land ownership, to repopulate Jerusalem. The answer is to repopulate Jerusalem. Nehemiah chapter 7, verses 4 and 5. Now the city was large and spacious, but there were few people in it, and the houses had not yet been rebuilt. I found the genealogical record of those who had been the first to return. The genealogical record was used to determine the rightful inhabitants of Jerusalem. Question 20. How did Nehemiah address Sabbath desecration? He expelled merchants. He rebuilt the gates. He did nothing. The answer is, he expelled merchants. Nehemiah chapter 13, verse 19. When evening shadows fell on the gates of Jerusalem before the Sabbath, I ordered the doors to be shut. Nehemiah ensured the Sabbath was kept holy by regulating activities in the city. Question 21. What sin did Nehemiah find among the returned exiles? Idolatry, intermarriage, theft. The answer is intermarriage. Nehemiah chapter 13, verses 23 to 25. Moreover, in those days I saw men of Judah who had married women from Ashdod, Ammon, and Moab. I rebuked them and called curses down on them. I beat some of the men and pulled out their hair. Nehemiah dealt harshly with intermarriage as it jeopardized the purity of the covenant community. Question 22. What did the people pledge during the renewal of the covenant? To support the Levites, to defend the city, to expand the walls. The answer is to support the Levites. Nehemiah chapter 10, verse 37. We will bring the first fruits of our crops and of every fruit tree to the house of the Lord. The people committed to supporting the temple and its workers, ensuring worship could continue. Question 23. Who provided financial support for the rebuilding project? Artaxerxes, Nehemiah, Ezra. The answer is Artaxerxes. Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 8. And because the gracious hand of my God was on me, the king granted my requests. King Artaxerxes gave Nehemiah letters and resources for the rebuilding of Jerusalem's walls. Question 24. How did Nehemiah feel when the king asked him about his sadness? Overjoyed, afraid, indifferent. The answer is afraid. Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 2. I was very much afraid Nehemiah felt fear because addressing the king directly about personal or political concerns was risky in ancient Persia. Question 25. How long did it take to rebuild the wall of Jerusalem? 52 days, 70 days, 100 days? The answer is 52 days. Nehemiah chapter 6, verses 15. So the wall was completed on the 25th of Elul in 52 days. The rapid rebuilding reflected God's favor and the unity of the people under Nehemiah's leadership. Question 26. What role did Ezra play during the public reading of the law? Priest, teacher, scribe? The answer is priest. Nehemiah, chapter 8, verses 2 to 3. Ezra the priest brought the law before the assembly. He read it aloud from daybreak till noon as he faced the square before the water gate in the presence of the men, women, and others who could understand. Ezra read and explained the law to the people, helping them understand God's will. Question 27. Who were the main opponents of the wall's rebuilding? Sanballat and Tobiah, Geshurites, Amalekites. The answer is Sanballat and Tobiah. Nehemiah, chapter 2, verse 19. But when Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem the Arab heard about it, they mocked and ridiculed us. Sanballat and Tobiah sought to discourage and obstruct Nehemiah's work. Question 28. Who came from Judah to visit Nehemiah in Susa? Tobiah, Eliab, Hanani. The answer is Hanani. Nehemiah, chapter 1, verses 2. Hanani, one of my brothers, came from Judah with some other men, and I questioned them about the Jewish remnant. Hanani, Nehemiah's brother, came to report on the condition of the Jews in Jerusalem, sparking Nehemiah's concern and prayer. Question 29. Who was given a room in the courts of the house of God by Eliashib the priest? Geshem, Sanballat, Tobiah. The answer is Tobiah. Nehemiah, chapter 13, verse 5. He had provided him with a large room formerly used to store the grain offerings and temple articles. Tobiah, an opponent of Nehemiah, was given a room, compromising the temple's sanctity. Question 30. What did Nehemiah do to the son-in-law of Sanballat? He drove him away. He paid him. He honored him. The answer is, he drove him away. Nehemiah chapter 13, verse 28. One of the sons of Joiada, son of Eliashib, the high priest, was son-in-law to Sanballat the Horonite, and I drove him away from me. Nehemiah's commitment to preserving the sanctity of the priesthood and the community of Israel by ensuring obedience to God's laws. How did you do? Whether you got them all right or learned something new, remember that the journey of understanding the Bible is a lifelong adventure. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel for more enriching content. And share this quiz with your friends and family to see how well they know their Bible verses. See you in the next video.